I used to spend hours glazing on my miniatures in order to achieve smooth blends. Until I started using this technique. And guess what? I'm using it for my Golden Demon entry this year. So in this video, I'm gonna show you what this technique is, breaking it down step by step, and how this is gonna allow you to paint interesting and heavily contrasted miniatures with a lower time investment. Starting with step 1, the base coat. In my case, a very dark base coat for my very dark angels. I use this green from Scale 75 Artist range, mixing it with a little bit of Abbandon Black. So what is this technique? I'm not sure about the name, to be honest. I guess I'll make it up as I go. But in order to understand this, what we really need to talk about is blending. Smooth blends in particular. One thing that it's very important to understand is that there are levels of smoothness. The smoother you want your blends to be, the more time you're gonna have to spend glazing, cleaning up that transition on the same spot. But at some point, painting my Dark Angels squad for Golden Demon, I said, I don't wanna do that anymore. So I came up with this. And I'm gonna show you how much better this is, and also it's much funner. Moving on to step 2. Well, before we actually start putting highlights down, we need to figure out where these highlights go. If you want realism, you need to figure out the right spots to place the highlights, following the geometry of the figure. Getting this right can be challenging, but with my students, I'm working out a new system that really tackles this topic, breaking it down in bite-sized pieces. And that is not just, oh, that's a cylinder, oh, that's a sphere. For now, just follow along where I'm placing them, considering that you will be able to change the placing without much issues. We are finally ready to mix and apply the paint, 2 parts green and 1 part pale yellow from AK Interactive. Just remember, you need to choose the main angle you want to see the mini from, like for example, in this case, it's gonna be this one. And then I apply the paint all over the model with a base coat consistency. I aim for 95% opacity, slightly less than usual, because it's just a point of reference to know where my highlights are gonna be. Step 4, I started the actual blending process by mixing a slightly darker mix than before, thinning it down more to a strong glaze consistency. This consistency allows you to harness the power of opacity and transparency. This is a very interesting approach if you want to give more visual interest to your model. Also introduce different texture, and as a plus, you won't need to spend hours blending this. Ain't you happy about that? All I'm doing here is changing the pattern of my brush stroke. Instead of blending on the edge and feathering the paint like I pretty much always do, I do something different with my brush work. Brush work here is key, but not only that, because there's another thing that is deeply connected with brush control: consistency. But luckily for you, I have a 90 minutes deep dive that you can check out in the link in the description. So go check it out, please, and help me avoid ending up sleeping on the streets in my own Warhammer boxes. Here I just used a different pattern of brushstroke, trying to regulate the pressure and be kinda delicate. The goal is to lightly erase the harsh line between the base coat and the first highlight using semi-opaque little lines. Try to aim your brushstroke downwards towards the shadows, turning in battle accordingly so you always go down with your brushstroke for maximum effectiveness. What the fuck? I did this all over the model. Of course, I kinda had to be creative on the rounded part. I just changed the direction of the brushstroke. Instead of going perpendicular like I did on the cylindrical areas, I went for parallel lines all around the circular highlight, like on the knee pads, on back thingies, and whatever. Maybe you can already see where I'm going with this, but the best part is yet to come, so let's move on to step 5. Here I mixed even more pale yellow to the previous mix, but this time I don't apply it in the same way. I want to apply this mix as an highlight layer, but this time using a base coat consistency as we did for the first highlight layer. I started directly using the same line pattern of the previous step. To do this correctly, you need to have the proper brush control and proper consistency. To load your brush the right amount, not too much, not too little, the right amount that with light pressure the paint will flow off your brush. I think it's a really interesting approach, and you can paint these lines as close together as you want. Of course, the thinner the lines, the cooler the effect, because they will kind of blend together. And finally, step 6, the final step, I again blend using the previous mix, the first highlight mix, aiming the brushstroke down towards the shadows. If you want to polish it a bit, you can paint some hedge highlights or apply some glazes to incorporate the lines more. But honestly, it looks good even as pretty rough as well. So yeah, we're also focused on smoothness. We don't realize there are so many other approaches as interesting and as eye-catching as smoothness can be. Remember that the more finishes and textures you introduce to your model, the more realistic and interesting it's gonna be. I saw this technique used a lot for non-metallic metal. I never actually saw applied to other stuff, and I call this line layering or line blending. On this channel, I show you and break down different techniques pretty much every single week, so don't forget to subscribe so the algorithm god know that I am worthy. Still, there's one more thing you gotta know to perfectly paint with this technique. If you get this one thing wrong, everything will fall apart and look off. So take a look at this video here, and I bet it's gonna solve problem. See you there, or I'll see you past me. I said see